Okay, I'm back for part 2 of the alien research. Okay, the angelic, demonic research basically is what it boils down to. So, in the last video, we talked about the 7 spirits gifted to us by our Creator. And now I'm going to talk about the affliction that we have. Okay, since the creation of man, we have Adam and Eve, right? And I'm going down the history of humanism. Okay, I'm using both the perspective of humanism and going down. I'm gonna switch over from the secular point of view over to the more biblical point of view, and the only reason why I do that is because that's where the research kind of led, and even with the secularists, those certain things that I listed that they agreed upon, okay, their belief systems go into other areas, other wormholes, okay, which we're all welcome to. You're welcome to your own belief in anything, but this all concludes everything that I've pulled together with humanism, the physical, and the non-physical, the angelic, the demonic, and alien. And again, alien is anything foreign. So if it's not human, if it is angelic, if it's demons, it is alien to us. So I'm just going to eliminate that word, alien. I know we're so used to seeing it. And I'm back in my car. I'm trying to hide. So I know we're used to saying that word. So I probably will use that word out of habit. But let's continue with the 7 spirits that afflict us, which we all know that we have. We can all agree that these are things that we've done, things that we've dealt with. This is stuff that we deal with in the human experience, okay? But we need to understand where it comes from. And it comes from a non-physical influence, okay? So we definitely have, we agreed that we do have forces of good and we have forces of evil, most definitely, and we can all agree on that. So the number one thing, so what kind of demonic spirits are there and what is their purpose? Okay, so what is the purpose of invasion at all? Alien invasion of any kind. What is their purpose? What are they here for, right? Well, the one thing that they do to attack humans and influence humans, and since we're born in with this thing called sin, which is something that we're never going to get rid of, that we do know that the earth was flooded, that's scientifically proven that the earth was once flooded, and that any kind of life that was there was totally eradicated, totally destroyed, with the exception of one small family, and both male and female of every beast, creature, both flying, creeping, crawling, everything on the earth, there was both male and female. So that eliminates the whole gender confusion of how many different genders there are and all that kind of, it's crap. It's crap. You can go down that wormhole and create that way of thinking and manifest it into being. You can manifest those things into being, and I'll tell you where that rooted in the human experience, in the human history. I'll tell you where that all rooted, and it came from the influence of non-physical influence. So the spirits that we have that are, and the purpose of them is what afflicts the human, okay? And it's number one is the lying spirit. It causes us to lie and eventually leads to the lake of fire, okay? The distressing spirit causes us to stress out without any reason, okay? And there's biblical characters that went through these same things, and I'm going to go ahead and offer that scripture. It's 1 Samuel chapter 16 verses 14 and 16, talking about Saul and how Saul went through a distressing spirit. He had a very distressing spirit. Number 3 is unclean spirits, okay? So it talks in the New Testament, in the book of Mark, chapter 5, it talks about demons being casted out into swine, which was the pigs, okay? So even back in biblical days, people were consumed with influence. They were consumed with demons. It's in the mind, remember, it's all psychological. It's not reality, okay? It's a physical reality only in the mind. But see, that's what that's what we're battling here is psychological warfare. So that's why I'm going to try and stay pretty narrow to all the information that I found. So the unclean spirit, there's spirits of infirmity, okay, which makes people weak, makes sick, disease, infirmity, things like that, which is what that influence can have. I don't know, I'll bring this up in a minute as an example. I'm going to continue here. So deaf and mute spirits, and deaf and mute spirits, they rebuke truth. It's kind of like, when somebody's trying to tell you something that you don't want to hear, even though deep down there's truth to what they're saying, but you just don't want to believe it. We see a lot of that today, obviously. So we've got the deaf and mute spirit. That is one of the things that I targeted on, and it talks about it in the book of Mark, again, chapter 9, verse 25, when Jesus rebuked the unclean spirits. It's the way of thinking, okay? It's a way of thinking, and I'm going to go ahead and use this. I hope I don't offend anybody, and I'm so sorry if I do, but I'm going to go ahead and use this as an example, okay? Deaf and mute spirits, like Black Lives Matter and Antifa and even the Me Too movement and LGBTQ and all that kind of stuff. Though I don't judge the way people live their lives or anything like that, a lot of the LGBTQ community and Black Lives Matter and Antifa, some of them have been saved from that mentality and that psychology, okay? But you can understand now, stepping back and looking at this, that deaf and mute spirits definitely have an influence over these people, okay? Even to this day, and we're talking ancient history here, and you can definitely see it in our modern day in things like groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter. There is no purpose in them whatsoever. There is no cause, and their only purpose is destruction. There is no goal. Okay. We also have familiar spirits, which this one really makes me uncomfortable, because this spirit changes our mind often. Okay. This familiar spirit can cause us to, oh, I hear this from this group. Oh, yeah, that sounds really good. I believe that. Oh, but I like this group. So it's somebody that floats from what they think. They're like talking out of both sides of our mouths. The media definitely reminds me of the media, but also reminds me of people that just kind of, they like to be told. They only want to be told what they want to hear. They don't like hearing the truth and things like that, or they don't like reporting the truth. So I can see where familiar spirits, I just see the media and all of that changing their minds often. And the scripture that backs that up is 1 Samuel chapter 28 verse 9. Saul was cutting out the mediums in that time, and the sorcery and all the false worship. But I can tell you from biblical experience that Saul was actually, he was summoning, I don't know how to say that word, summoning spirits, because he wanted to feel closer to God and talk to God. And it actually brought in, it invited sorcery and invited the non-physical into the physical. We have the seductive spirit, number 7, which is seducing us into all kinds of things that can seduce us into lies, sex, drugs, alcohol, music, entertainment, that seductive spirit that takes over. Okay, so in that seductive spirit, it all goes back to psychological, and the biblical backing of that is guard your mind with Ephesians 6. And I'll go through Ephesians 6 here in a little bit, but the most important one with Ephesians 6 is the helmet of salvation, okay, because it doesn't guard your skull. It's not protecting your skull. It's protecting your mind, your psychology, the way that you think. It's talking about the brain, the mind, and the way that the mind works. And the rest of the armor of God is protecting also what is eternal, but physical also. Okay, because it uses the analogy of a soldier. What does a helmet protect with a soldier? What does the breastplate protect? What does the sword, and it describes all of these purposes, which I will go into here in just a little bit. Number 8, the family spirit. The family spirit, it causes deep separation in the family. I know some of you have experienced that. I've experienced that too. So the family spirit, it causes deep separation. It is a rooted demonic spirit that comes through a wormhole, and it causes violence, and it brings in all those it ushers in all of those other spirits: lying, distress, unclean, spirits of infirmity, deaf and mute spirits, familiar spirits, seductive spirits. It brings in absolutely all of that and destroys the family. And I'll tell you that our Creator, we are one family, and there's love, and then there's hate. And we'll go back to Cain and Abel, the two brothers. Cain killed Abel because Abel was more in favor of God. He was more honest. He was more open. And Cain was not. Cain had different spirits. So number 9 is the death spirit, which is the curse of death. And I know a lot of families that have lost a lot, had a lot of loss, especially a child. Losing a child is probably the hardest thing any human could go through. I could never imagine, and I never want to. But there's that death spirit, and it falls on people, and it falls on innocent people a lot of the time. And those innocent people have to live life trying to understand why their children was taken away, or their child, and why God allowed it. Because, again, everything is by invite, and God allows certain things. But let's be very, very clear. Our Creator, I'll use our Creator, He allows certain things, but everything has to be done with His permission. And since there is sin, there is the cause and effect of sin. And let's be very, very clear. God does not interfere, our Creator does not interfere with free will. When He created us, He did not create robots that automatically love Him. He gave us choice, okay? He gave us choice. It was only the serpent that made the man realize, and the woman, that they had choice. Otherwise, they were under complete influence of the Creator. And it was only through a wormhole, okay, that the serpent was able to come in and deceive the natural, okay, because that's what they do. So our Creator wrote the law on our hearts. So it's only natural, like we naturally know good and evil. It's not in our hearts. It's not in our nature to harm one another. None of us want to steal from one another. None of us want to hurt one another. We don't have that. But we do see out in the world that some people do. So we can definitely see those spirits of influence, those non-physical spirits of influence on the physical, on humans, okay? So we have the influence of our Creator, okay, which is written in books. The oldest book is the Bible. I know it's been rewritten by man and all that, but all of that to say, I've got research on that also. That's for another day. But all of that to say that it was brought together by the Holy Spirit, okay? So we have all of these demonic spirits, and then we have the Holy Spirit, which I'm going to get into. So we have 7 traits of demons, okay? There's 7 traits to these non-physical aliens, okay? There's 7 traits to them. So the first one is deception. Deception. Let me get you to think in a certain way, and you're gonna believe it. And so, you know, the enemy, the what I call Satan, the devil, the Antichrist, whatever you want to call it, all these names. His biggest thing is a liar. He's a liar. His biggest thing is deception. So he entices and he tempts, or should I say they. So they entice and they tempt. They compel. They compel influence. They give affliction. and bondage, okay? Make you feel like there's no way out. That's what gets us in these situations in our own relationships, where we feel like that we have no way out. There's so much affliction and so much bondage, okay? And there are ways that we invite that in by what we say and how we live and things like that. And I think it really puts a lot of this into perspective. And another trait of the demons is enslavement, feeling like we're never going to escape, okay, defilement, everything of these demons, aliens, they want to defile the physical. They always want to take the physical and defile it, which is why a lot of these abductees that have claims of being abducted by aliens, they have such morbid experiences because they are defiled in all of these evil, wicked ways, okay? And though they think it happened to the physical body, it really only happened to the mind and the spiritual body, because we do have a spirit. And just to kind of sum this up, in the belief of the Christian belief, when we die, our bodies go into the ground, okay? And our spirits go up. And when the second coming happens, when Jesus Christ comes, that's when our bodies are going to be renewed to our spirits, okay? And there's going to be a reuniting of the body and the spirit, a new heaven and a new earth, and 1,000-year reign with Christ on earth. That's the Christianity belief, okay? So the Bible is clear about one single devil, one single enemy, a leader per se, and many demons. Okay, so you got one that's in charge, and then you got, which is, if you put it all together, what are some of the false gods that a lot of these people manifested and that they worship back in all of these days, before the Christ event and all that kind of stuff? Well, back in 1st and 2nd King, my Bible's back there, but back in 1st and 2nd Kings, there was a queen and a king, King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. And in their kingdom, they would sacrifice the infants, that because of the blood and the innocence and the youth. So, and they would eat these children, drink their blood, and all these kind of things. You can imagine. I'm sorry, I'm sounding so raw with this. It's just that I've studied it so long that I've kind of become a little bit calloused to these things, but I really want to put you there in the moment, so you can imagine these set of priests coming up before an altar, and these people going before them and having their children cut out of their womb, and sacrificing their infants right there on the altar, chopping them up in front of the whole kingdom. And so God sent Elijah to that kingdom to fight all them. And Elijah, it was kind of funny because Elijah was really scared, and he did all these things, and God empowered him in all these ways. The Creator empowered him in all these ways. But see, Elijah manifested good spirits, and whereas you had all these people, now in that kingdom, they had different gods, Moloch and Baal. And there were several other. Muhammad, I think, came later, but Muhammad did stem from the Islamic territory. So anyhow, let me get back on track. So you have all of these different entities that they worship. I will tell you that Baal, he demands that false god, okay, this is manifested in the brain, okay, it's not real. That god demands blood of the innocent. Okay, so, and adrenalized blood, Baal does. So, which is where we get our harm to children in these very demonic ways, okay? Sodomization, and we know from Hollywood and everything that we've learned from there, they were doing that same thing even back in those days. Okay, they were taking children, and in that kingdom of Jezebel and Ahab is where perverted sex was rooted. It was birthed from this kingdom, okay? It was around before, but it really became birthed in the non-physical in Jezebel's kingdom, okay? And so anyhow, they have all these different demands, these gods. Moloch is specific to infanticide. Moloch wants fresh babies, fresh kill. And I can tell you that it was that spirit that came on Pontius Pilate when he sent out to kill all the firstborn sons when they were warned about the Christ child being born, okay? And so the Roman emperor sent out and had all of the infants killed 2 years and younger, all the young boys, firstborn sons. And there is no record of all of those children killed. Let me make sure I got all that. Because the census had not been done yet for that year. And I'll get down to the census and how that all comes. So, a lot of these things, so how do we prevent demons? And can okay, I know this from the Bible. Okay, we cannot serve two masters. So we cannot have God in us and the devil. All right, so that being said, even though maybe some of you don't label yourself as Christians, I fully believe that we all can agree that there is a higher power. We have a creator. According to our science and our history, we were created by something, and that something cares for us deeply, according to all of the research. And there is a creation, something that was created that is against us, and it's the Bible is full with all of this, and we know this to be true because we see evil. So I'm going to go ahead and use this, just even though I know you don't label yourselves as Christians, this is the only way I know how to talk. So how can a godly person or a Christian or somebody who rejects demonology and all that, how can we prevent it? Well, number one is we are very careful what we see and what we allow ourselves to hear, okay? We're very careful what we read and what we idolize, okay? We're very careful not to reject the Christ event. Because remember, we go down to the spirits, and let's see, which one was it? The familiar spirit, which changes our mind. If you were never taught properly our history or anything, and I'm talking about myself too, if we were never taught properly our history, then we are full of rejection of truth, because that's not what we were ever taught. So what does the Bible say about demons? Well, he constantly warns us throughout the Bible, if we are under the belief system of the Bible being the holy word of God and life instructions for humans, okay? Because everything that humans go through is definitely in the Bible. Somebody before us has already gone through it, and God has dealt with that and showed us how he deals with that. So in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 10 and 11, it talks about don't give your children over to divination and into the fire. And it was talking about what it's targeting is abortions, child sacrificing, spirit cooking, sorcery, magic, and mediums, and anyone who calls on the dead. That's anybody who's trying to communicate with the dead, anybody that, and see, I watch shows like that, and now it's really making me think about it. It's really convicting me and making me think, I need to be careful what I watch, because you can be unknowingly inviting things into your home, into your spirit, into your psyche, okay? So you have the spirit world. Everything in the spirit world, the things that are seen are temporary, okay? We know that we have a beginning and we know that we have an end, but the spirit world is eternal. Okay, it's eternal. So there is definitely life after death. Okay, and people say that if you go to hell, you're dead and all this. Wrong. And there is a heaven and a hell, because we know there is good and evil, and we know that there is an abyss, which is darkness, a pit. Okay, and we know about the wormholes. So we know that through the wormholes, through the science, through the astrology, through the physics, mechanical, even is it mechanical physics is what I'm trying to say? Okay, through all of that, we know that to be true. Okay, so we know that there are portals. There are ways for these non-physical influence to enter the physical realm, okay, or the spirit world to come into the physical. So everything that we see in the natural, in the physical, will all come to an end. We know that because we have a beginning, and we know that we die one day. However, there is always life after death because we all have souls, okay, and because we all have souls, your soul is going to be put in a resting place, okay, for eternity. So you're going to live, and your spirit is going to live somewhere for eternity. Well, a lot of people in the Bible, I mean, to put it simply, they say you go to hell, you burn in a lake of fire and all this kind of stuff. But excuse me, I don't think they really put into perspective what hell is, because when you combine all of these spirits, you've got a lot of voices screaming. When you try to share Jesus with a demon, you get gnashing of the teeth and growls and hisses and nastiness. And we know that by seeing Congress and all we've seen plenty of that. Okay. So Christ's suffering, the suffering that Christ went through, and everything that was historically noted about Christ's suffering, he had all of those spirits against him. He was tempted in the wilderness by Satan himself and all this, but he was fully God and he was fully man, so he was able to counteract that. So he went through everything in the human experience and in the non-physical. So it's pretty crazy. So in Job, it talked about a spirit gliding past his face, that the hair on his body stood on end, and it was demons that can inhabit things. Demons can inhabit animals. Demons can inhabit people, okay, which is why and they can also change your DNA. That's also another video. It goes into the bloodline and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to go there today. I'm going to stay focused. So, the affliction and bondage. Okay, I'm going to go back up to the 7 traits. So, the deceiving, in Jeremiah 31, 33 through 34, the new covenant God the new covenant is what God will make with his people. And that was back in Jeremiah. And so through all these different people, God was working in certain ways all across strategically, okay, all across the world in these certain ways. So, we already said demons can inhabit animals and all this kind of thing. And in Luke chapter 8, when Jesus casted out spirits, there was a woman, Magdalene, who had 7 spirits come out of her. Remember that word? 7 spirits come out of her. So the spirit of lying, distress, unclean, the spirit of infirmity, deaf and mute, familiar spirits, seductive spirits, all of that came out of Magdalene. So, and the power of the God-man was able to pull that out, which psychologically, the power of God is able to save us from that psychological failure, okay, with God. So, I'm going to wrap this up, and then I'm going to have to do another video. But let me sum it up with this, Galatians 5:17. To walk in the Spirit is to be aware of the spiritual realm. Okay, so we know that there is a spiritual realm, obviously, and we're talking about, let's go back to aliens here. Let's keep it focused on the aliens. I think we can establish by now that the aliens are, number one, we know that they're not physical, so they're not human, and we know that we have the angelic that are for us, and it's very obvious that we have some that are against us, and they have all of these influences. They have characteristic traits. They also have free will. Now, God does not intervene with our free will, and neither does the enemy. However, both give an influence. What influence are we going to accept? I think that's what it boils down to. And before I go into even more in the wormholes and the natural way of the earth, and why the earth is for humans and not the physical, is pretty good. I do have a complete full section that goes directly into Gray's little green men and all of these different traits, but I think I pretty much summed it up in the first video when in the groups of 4. Okay, so in each group there's 3, and with those 3 have different capabilities, and they have different jobs and purposes. Okay, and you got to keep in mind those jobs and purposes do include from the enemy side, from the side that is not working for us, they definitely include deception, lying, distressing, all of these things. And I think the one that affects all of us now currently is the deaf and mute spirits. So that Jesus rebuked in Mark chapter 9. The deaf and mute spirit is, I think, the one that we struggle with the most psychologically, because it's what we don't accept. If it doesn't sound like something that we're used to or that challenges our beliefs, we don't want to accept it. And I think that's why I started this from a secular view, people who are non-biased by any stretch of the measure, and people who do not base their conclusions of anything experiential, anything that they experiment or research, or anything that they learn. They don't base it on biblical understanding or anything like that. And I like that, because a lot of what they say only proves Christ, to be perfectly honest with you. And I'll pull it all together the best I can. And the reason why I say that is I'm not trying to push religion on anybody. Please don't misunderstand me there. I promise I'm not. And I know there's so much more than what I even know to biblical understanding and ancient history and things like that. But this is all what I've found, and this is what I've concluded. So to go back to the spirit, we in order for us, we can go one or two ways. And I think a lot of us, for me, I lived most of my life without a good influence, okay? And most of my life with bad influence. So the past 12 years of my life, when I decided to submit myself to the Lord, I can tell you that my life before Him, I really had no purpose in it. I was always confused, lost, and I was just living. And my life after Him now is beautiful. I still have struggles. I struggle all the time. I struggle in my faith. I struggle in, with just everyday living and all that kind of stuff. But I think the moral of it all is that I can allow these influences, I can allow one of two influences to take over my thoughts. And just for me personally, I choose Christ. I choose His Word. I choose the Bible, because it teaches me how to be. And it teaches me everything good. And I don't see anything wrong with anything good. I know a lot of people rebuke it, and they rebuke truth in it because they don't find fault in themselves. And I just so happen to think that we were born into sin. We were dealt a pretty crappy deal, if you want to know the truth. But I think that we got purpose. God's got purpose in all of us, and our Creator's got purpose in all of us, and He's going to use us for something. And I know that we go through the things that we go through for a reason, and a lot of that time it's for somebody else. So that's kind of what I try to do, as I try to live my life to benefit other people, because I wouldn't want those coming after me to have it. If we can make it easier and educate our future generations, I just think it's easier. So I'm going to close this one up, and then I'm going to go into how we as humans deal with the spiritual battle, and how do we make it? How do we do it? Being sinful ourselves and having these rooted things in us, because we know we lie, we know we cheat, we've done these things in our lives. Not to say that we do them every day, but these are things that we've definitely done at one time or another, or we've been affected by that. And I know a lot of us are definitely affected by the familiar spirits, the seductive spirit, and most definitely the family spirit. That family spirit really gets me. It really hurts my heart because there's so many families that are torn apart because of that wormhole that we need to close. And we're going to talk about that too. I know the secularists that went to Russians, they talked about it. If you can open it, the correlation with it was close the doors to the occult activity, and the encounters of these non-physical beings will stop. The reversal of that is also true. If you keep opening up the occult activity, more encounters are going to occur. Now, in the so I'm just going to leave that there. So all of this to say, what do we do about this alien stuff, right? What do we do about this alien stuff? Well, I can tell you that through all of the research, I like the fact that the Bible points this out to me. To walk in the Spirit is to be aware of the spirit realm, because at first, digging into all this, I got to tell you, I was wondering myself, am I inviting? Because I personally don't want to invite none of this on me, okay? Because this is some pretty demonic stuff. However, I think it's good also that we are aware of our enemy and what we are fighting. And I think that only gets us stronger. So we are dealing with aliens. We are dealing with demonic forces. And Ephesians 6 says that we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but against rulers and principalities and wicked realms. Now, in the beginning, in Genesis, it says, in the beginning there was God, and in all creation and all this. Now, I forget where I was going to go with that. Oh, I just had it and I lost it. I'm sorry. So, when God created the heavens and the earth, he said heavens with an S. So, there is the ultimate heaven where our Creator resides, okay? And then there are realms. I know throughout the Bible, when God sent any of his angels, whether it be an archangel or anybody, they had to go through the realms. And when they went through the realms to come into the physical, okay, he had to fight. The angels had to fight. So they had to go through the demonic realm to even get into the physical, and they had to fight, which is what I believe when we see things in the sky. Like sometimes I know I've seen video footage where it literally looks like angels, somebody fighting in the sky with swords. I'm sorry, maybe it's just my simple mind, but I believe that's spiritual warfare right there in the non-physical realms. So I'm going to end this. I'm sorry it's so long. It's going to take forever to upload, I just know. But I love you guys, and I'm going to start on the next one.